Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. So happy to have you join me this morning. You know what? It's a little tough getting back in the seat, right? I was off for an entire week, and boy, I can tell because I got back here this morning and everything was fine when I tested everything. Then when I went to start the show, it's like everything was haywire and a bunch of my videos wouldn't load. So anyway, we're just gonna jump right into things. Good morning, Mandy. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all of you. It's so weird to not have been here for an entire week. And of course, there's so much that has happened since then. We're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard here in about 1 minute. He's going to be popping in with us, and so happy to have him today. I haven't talked to Colonel Joe Adams either, so lots to catch up on. Obviously, we got the situation with Nicolas Maduro, the former, I guess we call him the former president of Venezuela. No more, no more. But we don't know who the next president's going to be. There is an interim president, but I don't expect her to be the actual president. I think they're going to have a new election, is what I'm hearing, and they're going to allow the people to decide who is going to be their next president. Or maybe we're going to put in a puppet government. I don't know, but it's a lot of the things we're hearing are just not true. We're going to talk to Colonel Adams about the theater aspect because I'm hearing from entirely too many sources, and I did from the very first minute that this was a negotiated situation, that Maduro was fully expecting us to be there. He was not taken in the middle of the night while he was asleep in his bed. And so we're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams about that, get his opinion. And, I think a lot of it was just theater, why there was theater. I really don't know. And maybe Maduro negotiated, but maybe the rest of his team wasn't aware so that they could have a little extra fun with it. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, including Iran. We're going to talk about Mamdani. We're going to talk about Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz not going to run for a re-election. He's supposed to make that announcement possibly today, maybe this week. But in other words, we're going to be bringing Colonel Joe Adams with us in to see us here in just a moment. Good morning to all of you who are just popping in. Let me grab Colonel Joe Adams. Oh, he's almost ready. We'll get him here in just a second. But yeah, we got a lot to catch up on. We're going to talk about a lot of different topics with Colonel Joe Adams. And then we're going to talk about a couple more things that, after he leaves the show. Not much, hopefully he'll stick around with us throughout the show because we do have so much to talk about. Here we go, Colonel Joe Adams. We're going to bring into the show. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. It's been a while. It's been a while. How are you?
People ask me all the time, how was your Christmas? And my response is always, well, I didn't kill anybody, so that's a good thing. So
that is a good thing.
How was your Christmas?
Uneventful. It was nice. I don't know what my problem is. I just didn't really have the Christmas spirit this year. I did in the beginning, and for whatever reason this year I was so ready to put up my Christmas decorations and then get things going, and then I think I was just so busy that I just kind of lost the spirit. But you know what? It went well. Holidays are hard, miss family members and things like that.
Yeah, we got a rule around here: no politics during the holidays. So, don't get me started. So, actually, I had one of my militiamen came to the gun show yesterday and told me that he had his, I guess, his wife's brother and family over, and they started talking about Trump. And
oh my!
Because I guess his brother-in-law is a liberal. And it turned into a brawl, and they actually got fisticuffs at the around the Christmas table. So that's kind of funny. He's
don't talk about politics around the holidays.
No. We get that all year. So no, I guess you probably want to start with Maduro, right?
Colonel Adams, I know. Look how much has happened over the week when I didn't have a show. Here's what we're going to talk about this first, if you don't mind, is that with Nicolas Maduro, we all saw the video. Some have seen more video than others. I don't know how many times this guy changed his clothes. The first photo showing him coming out in a blazer, pants, looking, pretty fresh. And the next thing you know, he's wearing a Nike tech suit. And we saw several different clothing options. He and his wife are the happiest prisoners I think I've ever seen. They're walking around greeting people, while in New York, and they stop by Guantanamo first. But Colonel Adams, I have heard from the very beginning, from the very get-go, that Maduro negotiated his capture. So if he negotiated his capture, then is the rest of it just theater?
Yes. Real quick. First thing I told my wife is this was very, very well orchestrated. It appeared that, big bad America come and got him, but actually he had negotiated his surrender. He just didn't want to look like that he actually surrendered on his own and left.
Yeah,
So they sent in my old buddy's Delta Force, and yeah, a lot of theater. I'm just
that's what
glad
I was wondering. But real lives were lost. At least we're told real lives were lost. A friend of a friend, well, a friend of mine has a friend that was in either, I believe, lives in Venezuela, and this person said that their two friends were killed because I think the story was is that they left the airport. They would have been safe had they stayed at the airport, but they left the airport and ended up coming under fire somehow. And we're hearing about a couple of civilian casualties and what 38 members of Maduro's private security were killed. Were they really killed? I'm just curious how that works when it comes to theater because we know that the release was his capture was negotiated. So what happens? I mean, do real people get killed? It's so confusing to me.
that you people have to. Well, most people don't understand how Delta Force works. Okay, they come to do their job and they will kill you. Now, the slightest resistance, if somebody even raises the weapon or they spot a weapon, you're dead. Not you know. When Delta Force first was organized and I was with Delta, we were basically a hostage rescue or an assassination team. And so you have to understand the motivation behind these Delta. Now, I don't know if people understand who Delta Force is, but they think it's Army or Delta Force is made up of special forces from all branches of the government because all branches of the military, because in every military they have an expertise. Look at what the Coast Guard was doing in boarding those tankers down there. I mean, they do that for a living, especially on the high seas. So Delta Force is a combination. You've got SEALs in there, you got Marine Corps Force Recon, you got Army Green Berets, and we even had some Iranians on our Delta Force team because Iranians have been a pain in our butts for so many years. So the Iranians that we had on our team were American born from Iranian parents who moved over here. And so the reason we had the Iranians on our teams is because they speak perfect Iranian. And if we have to go back into Iran, we've got people not only who knows the streets and know the people, know their customs, but they speak the perfect language. So that's Delta Force. It's a combination of a lot of people. Delta Force was a byproduct or a morph from a group called Blue Light. And it's really strange because if you look on the internet, you'll see that some people deny that Blue Light ever existed. Well, I have to tell you, I was a part of Blue Light. Say, yeah, we did exist. Our commander was a guy named Charles Beckwith, Colonel Charles Beckwith, and he's the one who actually went to the president and said, "Hey, you know something? You want us to do special things? We have to have special equipment and we have to have special people." And so they started reaching out to all the branches of service, and I've got a guy that can shoot 1,700 yards away, and I got this. So that's how Delta Force actually developed from a group called Blue Light.
Okay, okay. I did
Yeah,
not know that, but I'll
yeah.
tell you, they
If
are
you look,
heroes.
if you look it up, some people will say we never existed. Well, we did exist. I think I've told you before, we were so top secret that once you became a member of Blue Light, you could never mention the word out loud again.
Oh wow.
That's how top secret it was. But now, and then of course, he went to Delta Force, and then Chuck Norris made a movie, Delta Force, which is
Right.
comical. I mean, it's really comical. It is, what I think is funny. Other people would think it's real serious, but I think it's comical. And I know Chuck, I know his brother, so good for him. But that's Delta Force. There's nobody
Yeah,
to screw with.
I remember the movie.
They
You know,
are professional killers.
that's wild. I thought the whole, I watching it all play out. Now, I was asleep when all of this went underway. And a friend of mine messaged me in the morning. And the first thing I saw was the message about, Maduro being, captured by US forces. And I wasn't shocked because how many times have we talked about on this show that it was going to happen? And Maduro, I'm gonna play this quick video clip here. Maduro taunted Trump. So we knew this was going to happen. We know Trump does not like to be taunted. And I'm going to play this quick video. You've seen this before of Maduro dancing. This was, of course, the final straw, I'm sure.
Venga por mí. Aquí lo espero en Miraflores. No se tarde en llegar, cobarde.
I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
A lot of fireworks, huh, Colonel Adams?
Oh, yeah. I'm having a lot of fun with this.
I love all the memes. Have you seen some of the memes?
Some of the what?
Memes. I've never seen so many funny memes about Maduro. It is hilarious.
I know. Made my day. Wait, hold on a second. Oh. Did you look on X, some of the comments?
I have. I have been all over this since it happened. I have been looking at comments, looking at posts, looking at photos. Maduro is like a celebrity. Have you seen that? With the DEA taking photos, selfies, smiling. I don't know what's going on.
This is just comical. Yeah, all those initial first explosions and stuff were just divisionary tactics to make people run for cover. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this, but there's a couple. Did you see the picture of Donald Trump in the window at McDonald's? And the caption was, "A former McDonald's employee liberates Venezuela." I mean, that's just classic. You can't make that stuff.
I did not see that one. I'll have to look for that. I have seen some really good ones, though. I especially like the ones of Trump. And I wish I would have loaded some of them up today. I especially like the ones of Trump, dressed like a Venezuelan, or the one about them turning in the flags.
But Trump say that
flags.
President Trump said that Maduro technically invited me. So that's just comical stuff. Oh, and then my favorite is when somebody commented on X that when Maduro was arrested, he was wearing Hello Kitty pajamas. I mean, that's just, I wish these guys that wrote that stuff were my neighbors, if I had any neighbors. I mean, these are just ingenious, making fun of this, making very light.
Yes.
Something was very, very serious. Now, this thing could have went totally wrong.
Yes, it could have. Yes,
it wouldn't be. I wouldn't be laughing like I'm laughing now. So thank God for our troops, and they sent the right people in. You get downrange of those guys with Delta, and you're dead. So Venezuela got off easy, put it that way.
They did, but there's so much more to come. This is just the start. The Venezuelan people are free. Now, Colonel Adams, as you have probably seen, obviously you've been on social media, Democrats have lost their mind. They're actually trying to impeach Donald Trump because he didn't get congressional support. First of all, he didn't need congressional support. Neither did Obama, when he went after Osama bin Laden. And we could go down the list why Donald Trump didn't want congressional support. But this is just the very beginning, because, we heard this morning, a lot of people you'll see on social media are saying, well, Maduro needs to be prosecuted over voter fraud because Dominion voting systems helped Joe Biden, win the election to help Democrats cheat. But Pam Bondi has already made the announcement that she absolutely will not file charges or go after Maduro, anything to do with election fraud. And that's going to disappoint a lot of Americans.
Compared to as much trouble he's in, that's like a parking ticket. He's not worried about it. That's the least of his worries. But
it's the least of his worries, but it's a big concern of Americans. Is we want accountability for the voter fraud. And Sidney Powell told everyone, and everyone called her a liar.
Yeah, the first thing I thought about when I got a text at 1:30 in the morning saying we're on, which means they're going in. So I just went back to sleep, woke up the next morning and checked the news. So because I knew they were going in about 1:27 a.m. I got notified we're going in. But one of my first thoughts was, how are the Democrats, the idiots, going to spin this thing? Now, understand these Democrats are so twisted, they're so evil that they would have rather had our soldiers killed on this mission than been successful. Those are the kind of people we're dealing with. They're ridiculous. I mean, this.
No, you're right. You're
It's
right.
going to continue. You know.
Democrats, I think what it is they just hate Donald Trump so much that no matter what it is he does, they're going to stand up and they're going to fight against it. And, you can look at Venezuelans who are finally, seeing that little bit of freedom and that they haven't had in what, 25 years. And we're seeing, Venezuelans, if you recall, and I know you do, back when all this went down, when Maduro first became president of Venezuela, people obviously when they introduced socialism into the country, they collapsed their economy. It completely collapsed it. People who were once middle class, upper class were out in the streets eating out of garbage cans. Do you remember that? They were burning money to stay warm. People lost their homes. And if you look at what Venezuela used to look like and you look like what it looks like now, what a big difference. I mean, that's going to be us someday if we keep following down this path of socialism. But Democrats, did they forget all of that? Did they forget what Venezuela once was? And did they forget, seeing all those people eating trash, literally in gutters? I have photos and videos of people, eating trash out of the gutters on the street. It's just a sad situation of what happened to these people.
Yes, and it's the end result of socialism.
Yes.
They were fine. In fact, I think they were the most prosperous country in South America until Maduro came in. But no, welcome to socialism, but people will be blind. We're letting communists and socialists now obtain political positions in this country. And there's an example, perfect example. Now, not only does socialism destroy this, the free enterprise and all that, but that's part of the plan to control the people. No, they have no malaria counter program there. I mean, tuberculosis is rampant, poverty, and this is not just a work of socialism. This is part of the socialist plan. The same thing is in Burma. They allow these things to happen, promoting diseases, not providing medical for their constituents, the population, depriving these people of that because that keeps them under control.
Right.
And it's always backed up by a military dictatorship.
And it's all about taking from the people and giving it to the folks at the top. That's what socialism is. And we see it happen. We're going to see more of it here in this country if we don't start fighting it. But as far as Venezuela, what does their future look like? And Darlene made a comment a few minutes ago, and she said, why would they leave that woman in charge instead of rightfully elected officials? And I'm guessing you mean Delcy Rodriguez, who is the interim president. Now, here's what's going to be shocking to people, because we all heard that Maria Corina Machado was going to end up becoming the next president because she was duly elected by the people. But now Donald Trump said that is not true. They have not spoken to her. The people they no longer want her to be their president. They don't support her. I find that hard to believe, but that's what Donald Trump is telling us. What's going to happen next? Are they going to hold an election?
Yeah. I think you're froze up right now.
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay.
You're fine on our end, Colonel Adams.
The protest down in Venezuela, who's for Maduro, well, obviously those people are not the victims of the poverty, and some of those women were carrying AK-47s. So, is there going to be a small fraction of civil war down there? Some uprising? Yeah, and we'll get past it. But those people who are protesting for him were benefiting by him. Everybody else is poor. So it's all about themselves. So because now Maduro's gone, now they're not going to. Now they're going to be equal to the other people, and they don't like that. That's protest. Now they're probably going to be some skirmishes. I don't know what's inside the military down there, because understand that this drug trafficking and everything else was some of the upper military people, the generals and the colonels and people like that, they were profiting by that. So they supported him. So now where that's going to go, all of a sudden the gravy train's gone and they're still in power down there, these generals. So it's going to be interesting. Probably be some infighting within the military, which is bad. But I think if we have to at this point, as peacekeepers, we can launch troops there.
And we will. There's no question, Colonel Adams. I think you and I both know we will absolutely do that. We are going to have United States troops, definitely. I've not heard any official plan, but we can already see the writing on the wall. We will absolutely have troops stationed there during this interim, during this election process, to make sure that the terrorists, the cartels, don't take over again. And this Delcy Rodriguez, who is the interim president, she hates Donald Trump. She is a fan of Maduro. She is not going to be somebody who we're going to want to be in charge long term. I think they're going to try to replace her just as quickly as they possibly can. But with who? That's just it. We don't know.
Oh, but here's okay. I take and see things that other people just don't notice. And here's the one thing that stood out on these interviews for the people that are pro Maduro down there, right? So there's a lady they're interviewing off the street. I don't know who she was, and she's talking about that we shouldn't have done that. It should be unlawful, and she's for Maduro and all. But if you look over her left shoulder, there is a U.S. military recruiting station there. We have a recruiting station in Caracas. I did not know that. So, and I know it's a recruiting station because it's got all four emblems of our military.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Air Force, Army, Marine. So as she's standing here saying we should have invaded and pro Maduro, a military recruiting station is over her left shoulder. Did anybody else see that?
I did not. I did not see that interview at all. I have heard very little from people who supported Maduro, and the ones that do, just like you said, there are people who are profiting from the drug cartels. Oh, now what about Americans, Colonel Adams? What about, I'm not going to go over the list because I can't vouch that it's true, but there's been a list that's been released that's been going around the internet saying, well, these are the supporters, people who got kickbacks from what was taking place in Venezuela, from the cartels, from Maduro. There's quite a long list, mostly Democrats, some Republicans. And I'm not going to go over those names because I can't prove it. But the fact is we know that there are Americans in Congress who absolutely have profited off of the situation in Venezuela. And those people should be called out. If there is such a list, I would really like to see it.
And Minnesota. Okay, so I didn't verify this, but some information came in, and AOC is got a bullseye on her. The information I got, and somebody should check this out, that AOC's net worth since 2023 has increased 66,000%.
You're talking about Elon Form in Minnesota, aren't you?
No, AOC. Anyway, so check that. I don't have verification of statistics. So anyway, yeah, who's making money? And a lot of those people are making money. Of course, Tim Walz too. And the classic with that Minnesota thing is all those child care centers. And these guys go around investigating all that. And it's a big fraud. We know that. But they call the number on this one called like Little Angels or something. They call the number, and it rings in at Tim Walz's office.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that. Now, I think that, somebody probably hacked in and did something. I don't think those people's real phone number probably went to Tim Walz's office. But I do know one thing, that Tim Walz is going to announce probably today, maybe tomorrow, that he is not, maybe he's already done it, he's not going to run for re-election. He's been campaigning for the next, governor election there in Minnesota, but he is going to drop out of that race, of course, due to all the fraud. He needs to be prosecuted. People need to be held accountable. And if you ask, a lot of people say, well, all these people have already been arrested because of these fake loans and fraud. Well, it's not enough. What about the people who are getting kickbacks? Because, a situation like what's taking place in Minnesota, and trust me, it's taking place in every state, particularly Democrat-led states, but there's somebody at the top. There's the hierarchy at the top who has facilitated all of this to take place. It didn't happen organically. This is organized crime. It's organized crime. So where are the people at the top?
to prove that fact is who made the phone call to the people in going through the security line at the airport, knowing that they travel in pairs, two males with suitcases full of cash. Who cleared that?
Exactly.
Who
It's
cleared
all
that?
facilitated. It's organized crime. It starts at the top. Who's at the top? I think we
Yeah.
probably all can take a guess. And it'll be another situation where nothing will ever happen. We'll never have the accountability we're looking for, but all we can do is hope that other states are also, we really look into these other Democrat-led states and see what other fraud, because if it's happening in Minnesota, it's happening everywhere.
But if you look, if you look,
It's bad.
if you look at TSA's mission statement, that's on there. So who made the phone call to TSA agents saying, "Hey, let the cash go," and they're going back to Somalia? Now, who made that call?
But Colonel Adams, look how long this has been going on. You remember back in the day, and I've mentioned this before on the show, but when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, look what happened at the Mena airport and all the drug trafficking that took place. Tom Cruise made an entire movie about it called Made in America. There's probably other movies made about it too. But I mean, look at the drug trafficking that was taking place under the nose of Bill Clinton as the governor of Arkansas. And everyone knew that it was happening. Everyone knew. And it was a very similar situation. All about kickbacks, all about the elites making money. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I knew Barry Seals, the guy I eventually killed.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I knew him because the United States Weather Bureau is a spy organization. You know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so the number one pilot in that organization was a friend of mine. In fact, he's the one who introduced me to the president down there in Grenada that I was doing some work for before we invaded. Actually, the reason I was there, I was spying on the Cubans because they were building an airstrip. In fact, they showed it on TV, I think, over the weekend, that this operation to take Maduro out has actually happened at least 3 other times. And one of those times was the president of Grenada who was taken out. But he didn't get taken out because of narcotics. He got taken out and removed because he was allowing the Cubans to build an airstrip. Oh, speaking of Cuba, now a lot of times things are as we see them. Okay, now a part of the byproduct of this taking Maduro out is a squeeze play on Cuba. This situation has a lot to do with Cuba putting a squeeze on them, shutting off the oil going to Cuba, setting up embargoes around her so nobody can get oil in, and to bring them to the table. Now, unfortunately, the people are going to suffer. And it's like Donald Trump said to us, he's going to change the economy, and at first it's going to be painful. Unfortunately, the Cuban people are going to have to sacrifice for a while until we get them to the table and get rid of the communists and give them back their country.
Well, Donald Trump has, you know what, Colonel Adams, I'm going to stop for 1 second because I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We changed topics too quick, but let me backtrack for 1 second. Then we're going to talk about Cuba. Okay. When you were talking about Minnesota, I just wanted to add one little thing in, is that now in the state of Minnesota, something that because poor Somalians, they're the brunt of everybody's aggression these days. They are now giving Somalians in Minnesota a 20-week paid leave from work where they're getting paid. They can't lose their job. They're federally protected, or I would say state protected, even though it said federal. And a 20-week leave due to, of course, the aggression against them. It's insane. But back to your point about Cuba, is, Donald Trump has already made the statements that he's warning Cuba that, hey, you're next. Colombia, you're next. Mexico, you're next. And, and then people want to talk about, well, this is all about oil. Yes, it is a lot about oil. Of course it is. But if it's not us taking the oil, it's going to be Russia. It's going to be China. Chinese delegates were there whenever they came in and took Maduro out. So, of course, do you know, Colonel Adams, we are already drilling and extracting oil in Venezuela. That's how quick it happens already.
but it's more than oil, though. I mean, they've been trying to fight FARC down there, FARC in Colombia for years, a guerrilla operation which is financed by narcotics. So there's a lot of people right now. Even the president of Mexico is going, Houston, we got a problem, because Trump will do what and he's proved it. If he says something, he'll do it. Now,
Yes,
he might have ulterior motives to do it, but Cuba is on the list. We've been wanting to pull this off for a long time.
Cuba is on the list, and and I think it's going to happen. Those people need to be liberated.
And Russia's not going to interfere.
Russia's not going to interfere. I'm glad you made that point, because a lot of people thought, China, Russia, they're going to come out and they're going to do something. They're going to react. They have to come out and give that obligatory statement that says, Donald Trump, you shouldn't have done that. Bad boy, tisk, tisk. But in the end, they would have done the same thing. Putin even made a statement over the weekend where he said, what Donald Trump did was illegal by our standards. However, it's very consistent for Donald Trump because he's doing what he needs to do to protect the United States, and that's what he did here. They have to act like they care, right? But in the end, they would have done the same thing.
And the Democrats are so stupid. I don't doubt they'll impeach Trump over this thing. That's how stupid they are. One of the top Democrats in their party, or the socialists, what it was on Fox the other day, and he actually just said, we have no platform. We have no plan, but we will have. They continuously shoot themselves in the foot. But hey, Kevin chimed in. You were in Baton Rouge when they gunned down Barry Seal? Oh, yeah. I even know where the assassins got the guns that shot him. And Kevin said, what? Kevin says he heard that Somalia ambassador to the UN also owns a child care center in Minnesota. Oh, shocking. Oh, it's just.
It is. And Kevin also said about talking about voter fraud. Kevin, I don't know if you were here in the show earlier when we were talking about voter fraud, but Pam Bondi has already said, for anyone who missed me saying this earlier, Pam Bondi said she is not going after Maduro for the Dominion voting system, for the voter fraud and his role in voter fraud that took place here in the United States in the 2020 election. And Colonel Adams, I know, like you said, the narco-terrorism charges are a much bigger deal. But here's the thing. I don't think that Maduro's ever going to spend a single day sitting in Gitmo. I don't see it happening. They're going to make some cushy deal for him. And then that's why he and his wife, they're all smiles. They're walking around like celebrities, taking selfies and photos. They've had 4 or 5 outfit changes between picking Maduro up at his house before he made his way finally to New York. Nothing's going to happen to them.
Well, listen to what you just said. Why did they take him to New York?
Oh, right, yeah.
Here we got a federal court in Fort Lauderdale that we use for classified, secret, no publicity, no pictures, for prosecutions of people like this, right? They can slip him in, do that, slip him out, right? Why didn't they go to Miami? Why did they fly over half the United States to take him to New York, to slap the New York socialists in the face? That's why they went to all this trouble to take him to New York when they didn't have to. He will never go to Gitmo. He's going to end up with Marion, Illinois.
Oh yeah, if he even spends a day in prison, I honestly will be surprised if he ever spends a day in prison. I want to touch base on Carl's comment. Thank you, Carl, for pointing this out. And if you saw me when I was talking about it, I was kind of struggling over it because I was trying to find the right wording. Carl says, drilling never stopped. You might have heard we're already drilling, but it's out of context. We've taken over the drilling that was actually already, happening. And I agree with you 100%, Carl. Drilling was already taking place. They were already taking out oil. We just took over, just like what we did in Syria, back in the day. But Colonel Adams, what are Maduro's options? Let's say that he negotiated his release, which again, I've not heard that reported in the media. People I know who were involved told me, no, he negotiated his release. Everything you see, all the fireworks, that's all just theater. And that he negotiated it to get a cushy deal. That's why he's all smiles. But what kind of cushy deal is he going to get?
He will go to prison. He might die before that, but he'll go to prison. They have to. If they don't put him in prison through the judicial process, then all this is for nothing. And like I say, there's no reason to send him to Gitmo.
Yeah, I would. Well, he's definitely probably not going to go to Gitmo. I think it'll be very interested. I will be very interested to follow along, of course, and see where he ends up. Because, I think a lot of times, now this is just me, maybe this is the conspiracy theorist in me, that a lot of times these federal prisoners, people like Maduro, who have a lot to offer, that we make deals where they get extradited to other countries, or sometimes we say they're in prison when really they're not. I'm not going to, go into names, but I know there's somebody related to the Epstein case who is supposedly in federal prison. But somebody I know told me, hey, I live next door to this person's house. I see them at their house. I know they're there. They're not in prison. And it's just, I don't trust anything. Again, maybe that's a conspiracy theorist in me. But I think that what they want to show the world is different than what's actually happening behind the scenes. And in that respect, I don't think Trump's administration is any different than any other.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the possibility of extraditing him after he's sentenced here to other countries for prosecution, but it kind of seems unnecessary unless they do it for theater. Carl Schneider, where's Carl go? Oh, yeah, Carl Schneider, by the way, is one of my main guys in the militia. So hi, Carl.
Okay.
Hi, Carl.
Well, glad to have him here.
Oh no, he's one of my main people.
And Glessa said, well, where would he live if not in prison? I don't know, Gless. Now, that's just it. He belongs in prison. I certainly hope that he ends up in prison. He's responsible for the deaths of millions of people, around the world. He
knows a lot. And the people that he knows a lot about are still loose.
Yes.
And so they'll put him in prison just to protect him.
For his own safety.
But he'll go to Marion, if anywhere. So.
Now, what about his wife? Will his wife see a day in prison?
This is probably just about the first time, other than when we took out the
Marco
in Haiti, that a woman. I think that because for her own protection, actually, because if they take out Maduro, she's left behind, and she knows what Maduro knows, make people nervous. That kill her too. A lot of this is to protect Maduro's information he's got, and he hasn't played his, like, I shouldn't say trump card yet. So he knows a lot, and it takes a while to get that full information and connect the dots. It can't be done overnight. So people think, oh yeah, put him in prison. A lot of that is to protect what he knows.
Sure, absolutely. So, and because I was kind of wondering, I'm like, I wonder, remember when Al-Qaeda took over Syria, just not too long ago. Well, of course, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, he left and he fled to Moscow, where he's living and thriving with his family and, a free citizen and is doing just fine. But Putin had said prior to that if he was not able to flee, if they did capture him, Putin was going to make a deal to have Assad transferred to Moscow one way or the other. Do you see something like that happening with Maduro, that other countries like, let's say, Russia make some sort of deal with us saying, okay, I'll sign this peace deal. I'll do whatever you want, Donald Trump, but we want Maduro here. We want to give him protections in Russia.
Not until we're done with Maduro. When we're satisfied, and the CIA is satisfied, and the president's satisfied, we can't get any more out of Maduro. Then he becomes useless, and we could use him as a pawn for some other country. But yeah, but we're gonna hang on to him for a while.
I hope so. I know Jay said the same thing. Can they make a plea deal? I don't know why. Again, it's just the conspiracy theorist in me saying that, I'm so used to there being no accountability that I almost feel like that this situation is no different than any other we've seen. I'm probably very wrong in that there probably will be accountability in this case. Look what Maduro did to the people of Venezuela. Look how many people fled. What was it? A third of their population fled after he took over, and they, instilled communism.
They were in Colombia.
Yeah.
Even this morning, it was like a bad day on the expressway. They were bumper to bumper cars coming out of Colombia back to Venezuela. None going the other way. These people are coming home.
I'm so happy for those people. I can't begin to tell you how happy I am for Venezuelans, not just in the country of Venezuela, but all over the world, people who have fled, people who have had family members in Venezuela and they have feared for their lives, all this time. These people finally they're free. And I hope we do go to Cuba and liberate the people of Cuba. I hope we do go, to Mexico and fight the cartels and liberate the people. Because a lot of people don't talk about Mexico and the hold that the cartels have over the people of Mexico. But as you know, if you're a business owner in Mexico, you have to pay the cartels. You're never really going to get ahead because you have to give them, so much of your profits. And, I really do think that Donald Trump is going to follow through with these promises to go to Colombia, Cuba, and Mexico and liberate all of these people.
Well, Colombia and Bolivia, people aren't talking about Bolivia too.
Right.
They're all involved in the narcotics trade. But I guarantee that Cuba and Mexico will be dealt with before Donald Trump's out of office.
I agree. I do agree. And people don't understand, especially Democrats, that not only are we liberating those people, but it's for our own national security. Because who are the people coming into our country illegally? It's people coming into our country illegally who are part of the cartels, part of the drug trade, bringing drugs into. And if anybody out there has a family member like I do, who was lost, due to, of course, narcotics, it's just a horrific situation. And we have to protect our borders. We have to protect our country. And just putting up a fence is not good enough. You have to go back to the source and take care of the problem where the source is.
Absolutely. So expect a little bit of civil uprising down there, not knowing, generals against colonels, whatever. We got CIA down there right now. We've set up headquarters. Of course, they've been there for quite a while, but no, we're going to keep an eye on them. We're going to get rid of some generals, look for some future prosecutions of particular people, look for a certain military personnel leaving Venezuela, possibly even going to Russia. So all these things are going to happen. But I think because of the way that it was done and because of the oil issue, I think that the U.S. is going to play a major, major role in a new democratic Venezuela.
Colonel Adams, something I wasn't planning on talking to you about, but I didn't talk to you about this last week when I did talk about it the week before. What about have you heard about the Core 5, C5? And that's going to be, how many times on this show have we talked about, and I think this is part of the plan. How many times have we talked about, we've got to get out of the European Union. We don't need to be associated with the European Union. We got to get out of the G7. We have to withdraw from NATO, from the UN, but then we don't really want to join BRICS. That's not really right for us. And you've said yourself, we can't be isolated. So what do we do? Well, Donald Trump has a plan, and it's called the Core 5, the C5. And that would be the United States, Russia, China, Japan, and I believe it's South Africa. The 5 of us coming together and establishing, instead of a G7, the Core 5, a C5. I'm just curious of your thoughts on this. Is a real plan of Donald Trump's administration.
Well, I was part of the South African military in '86. Yeah, I worked as an anti-terrorist. So I know a lot about the inner workings of South Africa, especially out of Johannesburg. But if we did that, and the only oddball in the whole pile of the 5 is South Africa.
Africa. You know what? I had it. You know what? I'm glad you said that. You're right, because I was wrong. It's India, not South Africa.
Okay, there you go. Okay,
if that makes more sense to you.
You
corrected sound right when I was saying it.
You threw me a curve on that one. I'm thinking, no, that's not going to work.
I apologize. The Core 5 is actually India, not South Africa. So it'd be the United States, Japan, Russia, China, and India would make that Core 5. Sorry about that.
Perfect. That's the 5.
And that would be the new world dominating superpower.
That would be. Now Pakistan won't appreciate that, okay? No. But and maybe Pakistan too. Maybe if we did a G6 like that or Core 6, maybe we could finally have Pakistan and India get along, because those guys always want to kill each other.
Well, but Pakistan has become such a terrorist country that I think at some point down the road, we're not there yet. Pakistan is a country we're going to have to deal with because they're going to be the next Islamic caliphate if they're not careful.
Yeah, they're the bad boy on this, right? They've always been a part of terror. They play both sides.
They do.
Where was Osama bin Laden living? Pakistan. So
that's exactly right.
Somebody said that you got to send Delta Force into Minnesota, California, and New York. Good idea. Good idea.
Let's do it. Colonel Adams, I know you want to run. I'm hoping to keep you as long as I can, but I have to touch base on Iran because you've seen the protests, the uprisings that are taking place in Iran. I am hearing through some private, channels that I have that the Ayatollah Khomeini is ready, packed his bags, and he's ready to go. They feel like it's over for their regime. There's nothing they can do to fight back, and that they do feel now that the people are armed, the people are now armed, that there's not really a whole lot they can do, and that they're being offered, of course, as always, they're being offered exile in Russia.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that's wishful thinking?
Well, I think a bunch of people are going to die first.
Yeah.
I mean, when you corner a rat, he'll fight back. And this Khomeini crazy guy, everybody since the Shah of Iran are all like that. Just Muslim extremists, Islam, it's all in one bag. But yeah, a lot of people are going to die. If in fact that's a plan, a lot of people are going to die first.
That's what I'm glad you said that because I was kind of wondering about that. I'm like, I can't see them giving up that easily. They haven't really. Yes, there are several Iranians who have risen up, who have disappeared, who have been killed, who have been injured, but not really on a wide scale. I feel like the Iranian regime hasn't really fought back yet, but it could be because they're scared to. Like you just said about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, when he says he's going to do something, he does it. And Donald Trump has come out and publicly said that, hey, Iranian regime, if you harm the people, guess what? We're going to come in, we're locked and loaded, and we're ready to go. If you harm your people, you're done. Yeah,
I heard that too. Like, that's interesting. So I'm still playing with that. I mean, I got to make some phone calls to some of my friends in the intel business and see what they think of that. I'm really surprised he said that. But we have a big, huge CIA involvement over there. A lot of the stuff that's going on is being promoted and financed by the United States, which as it should be. And I'm sure Russia's got some people in there too, keeping an eye on things. But that should be really interesting. But
I think it will be. And I think in this case, I really think the people are going to win. They had that revolt, a year ago? And, then it kind of stopped. And I really do think this time is different. Like you said, they have the United States backing. There's a lot of money being funneled into Iran, to the people. Now, a lot of them, again, are armed. There's no doubt where those weapons probably came from. And I think that they've got the upper hand at this point.
Yeah, they got the high ground. This should be interesting. And where they screwed up was that people knew that they have a huge civilian militia, armed militia that are just civilians. Well, some of those guns ended up in these protests, and you're right, they do have. And the irony is, the Ayatollah armed them. He didn't see that one coming.
Right. And so, the last I saw is the Iranian citizens were firing, warning shots. They hadn't shot anyone yet, but of course that was last night before I went to bed. I haven't had time to check on it this morning, but that's another big situation that's unfolding. But you know what? Think about it this way, is that look at all of the liberation of the peoples that's taking place across the world. Yeah. How much peace we're creating. These people in Iran, it's our own fault, of course, what happened to them. And it's our responsibility to instill peace and freedom, in that country once again.
When Trump first took office, and the first thing he did was go after the border, and we know all of the countries in Europe that have taken a stand against illegal immigration. Donald will be watching successful at this. Now we got a long way to go. I don't think he's going to get all these people out of here during his administration. Mathematically, it's impossible. But I still say that there's a good chance within the next 3 years that for some reason he'll have to launch troops inside the United States. And I'm talking about war with Islam. Even if it's suicide. Now, how'd you like to go to war with people who you allowed in the country and who want to die for their God, their pedophile God, Allah. I mean, we're in a dangerous situation. Now, everybody's having fun with this. It is great to see what Trump did with Venezuela and all that. But in the meantime, Islam's plan against the United States in our borders goes on as we speak.
Oh yeah, it's great what's happening around the world and all of our foreign policy and things we have on the works. But yeah, we've got to concentrate what's happening right here in our own country. Colonel Adams, I don't know if you saw, we went through Christmas, we made it through New Year's. There were no terror attacks, that took place here in the country. But did you see where they found that box of NYPD uniforms on a New York street?
Oh,
I was curious if that was part of maybe an attack that was planned that got foiled.
No, I didn't hear about that. What was that?
Yeah, there was I've got video and photos of it, but somebody just came across this. It was a big box right there on a corner in New York City, and it was filled with NYPD uniforms. Now, it could be a situation where, I mean, I don't know. I find it hard to believe that somebody would have just thrown their NYPD, uniforms, their police uniforms away and just put them in a box on the corner. There has to be more to this story.
Well, what is it? Mumbai theory, the Mumbai plan. When this happens and they attack it, they're supposed to attack us, on a major hospital across the country, different places, and they attack, and they already said when this attack happens to us, they will become dressed as police officers, guardsmen, first responders, in painted first responder vehicles. No, and so how do you pick out who's who?
Exactly.
And that's what they did in Mumbai. The same thing. So yeah, these uniforms and all these things, yeah. But that's how.
And no one's talking about it. No one made a big deal out of it. Unlike, I think it was exactly 15 weeks ago when we were all warned that terrorists here in the United States went to 5 different states and purchased uniforms belonging to various law enforcement, units. And so now we know that these uniforms, they retrieve the uniforms, that those uniforms are out there. And I'm like, gee, are these uniforms part of that bigger plot? Is NYPD going to look into this and see how they, got there? I haven't heard another word about it. Like no one even connected the dots there. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating to me.
On that manifest, I think I sent you that we expect the attack to be performed by people that look just like us.
Correct.
In uniforms. Yes. I mean, what are you going to do? Shoot an ambulance? How do you know? And it causes us to hesitate.
Correct.
And we're dealing with people who like to put on suicide vests. How do you stop that?
Well,
you got to kill them before they get to the target. Well, how do you know it's them? So it's not that easy.
You just have to hope you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time, really, because there's really nothing you can do to stop that type of attack. And if they look like us, it's not like somebody who and quite honestly, Colonel Adams, when you go to a hospital, there's a lot of people who work within the medical field, honestly, who have varying shades of brown skin. I'm not sure how to politely put that, but there's a lot of people there from various countries that come in to work at hospitals, all, for the most part, very good people. But the problem is that you have a terrorist come in and they're dressed like a doctor or dressed like a medical professional. You wouldn't even think twice about it, regardless of the fact that they look Middle Eastern. You would never even think twice about it.
Yeah, I'm more shocked when you get a doctor like in an ER that is not somebody from Asia. So that's
well, that's exactly right. I know I've obviously had these health problems, and I go to a lot of hospitals, a lot of doctors' office, and I would say 95% of the doctors, medical professionals I deal with, went to school and come from other countries to be here, as varying specialists, and they're great, fantastic doctors. But the fact is that, that's why I think they're planning these attacks at hospitals, because it's so much easier to blend in. And of course, they're trying to take out as large of a, most amount of people as they can. But, what's that?
It's all about numbers.
It is. It's all about numbers.
How do I kill the most people the easiest way, most mass casualties? Carl commented in about this attack that we've got information on should happen before the end of February, Ramadan. Okay.
Oh, so, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, Carl knows the whole thing. He's been briefed.
Colonel Adams, well, I know I keep keeping you. I hope you have another couple minutes. One of the things I want to talk to you about today, because this is a situation on this show we have talked about. We have talked about it, and I woke up this morning and I read this story, and I was horrified. Early Saturday morning, the middle of the night, of course, early Saturday morning, there was a woman. Her name was Zoe Walsh. She was in Raleigh, North Carolina. She woke up to someone breaking into her home. She called 911. Now, according to her friends and other people who knew her, she opposed violence. So she did not own a weapon or anything to defend herself. She's on the phone with 911 saying, hey, somebody's breaking into my home. This guy takes the phone away from her, and he literally beat her to death while she's on the phone with 911. And we've talked about that scenario happening before on this show. And I know a lot of what you do with the Washington Guard is teaching people how to make sure something like this never happens to you.
That's the first thing we teach. Everything. Now, of course, we're part of the volunteer first responder unit here in Franklin County, but by teaching that sometime, someplace, you're going to be on your own. I talked to a guy the other day that his house was burglarized. Him and his family, 2 kids, and his wife, and the house got broken into, and they were brutalized and all that because his wife would not let him keep a gun in the house. So he locks the guns up in a safe in the barn. So while they're being assaulted and robbed, which changed their life, the wife would not let him have a gun in the house. My first response is, well, get a new wife. Because
right.
That is crazy. Why do you think you have the weapons? To lock them up in the barn where you can't get to them? No.
Right. I couldn't agree more. It's a crazy situation. When I saw this story, I thought, oh my gosh, this could happen, to anyone. If you're not prepared, you're not confident how to use your weapon, this could happen to anyone. And I hate saying this, because I don't like to talk about people who've just been through such a tragic, horrific situation in their family. But if she were armed, maybe this situation would have turned out a little bit differently.
He could have handled it differently. We've never had a problem with people breaking into our homes, but we live different places because somehow word gets around who lives there.
Right.
So if you break into my house tonight, they will come and get your dead body tomorrow morning. I'm not messing around.
And this guy was a stranger. His name was Ryan Camacho. Stranger, did not know her, career criminal, U.S. citizen, nothing unusual there. And just a career criminal, broke into her house, happened to come across her, literally beat her to death on the phone with 911. When I heard that, I thought, man, this is just a horrific situation. And, many prayers, of course, to her family and friends that are dealing with this. And she was a school teacher, so today, we have kids going back to school who've lost their teacher, and they have, of course, crisis counselors there today. Just a terrible situation, and one that, in my opinion, is preventable. This situation is preventable.
Except, I've taught weapon craft all over the world for decades, and I will tell you there's a problem with that. Yes, everybody should be armed, everybody should be skilled, but they're not. How many times has somebody go, I got a gun in the house? Good. When's the last time you shot it? Well, I've never shot it. And there's some people, and I can speak even right here in Franklin County, that we've worked with that should never own a gun. So I said, get proficient with a knife or something, have some type of weapon.
Right.
And there was going back a few weeks, somebody, the Rob Ryan thing. We talked a little bit about that. Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
Okay. Supposedly his kid, coming and killed him. Did I tell you about? I had a similar circumstance. I had to, I'm going to touch on that again because I was talking to, who was I talking to? Might have been News Talk. So a guy comes to me and says, I think my son's going to kill me. Oh, well, where's your son live? He lives with us. I said, well, get a gun and I'll show you how to. I can't do it. Can't shoot. So my advice was, if your son is he's off his meds. So remove any object that could be used as a weapon. So if your son's in the house, well, he didn't do that. And the kid got a butcher knife and killed him and his
Oh my
wife.
goodness.
1 week after I told him that.
Awful. Awful.
1 week to the day, his son did exactly what Rob Reiner's kid did.
There's a lot of mental illness, in this country. I dealt with that myself, many years ago. I had a neighbor who, well, it was a neighbor's son. She was an elderly woman, and her son came. We were told in the neighborhood he was discharged from the military. Never did I know he was discharged actually from a mental institution. And I would watch this guy during the day. He walked around this tree in her front yard. He lived like across the street in like catty corner from me. This guy would smoke an entire pack of cigarettes, literally 20 cigarettes or however many are in a pack, across his mouth lit. And he would walk around this tree to where he, wore a path around the tree. And then he started coming over to my house, which, first I thought, well, he's just harmless. I didn't know he had a mental health issue. I quickly realized something wasn't right. He came over to my house one day to ask me if I'd give him a ride. And I thought, well, why not? My grandma's friends with his mom. He lives across the street. So I took him to this house just 2 or 3 blocks away. And then he explained to me that George Bush lived there and he was there to kill George Bush. And I thought, okay, this guy is off his rocker. He got out of the car. I went home. A couple of days later, he knocked on my door and he told me, he goes, make sure, you turn this light off, this porch light off, because I'm going to sneak in like a cat in the night, and I'm going to come in your house. And trust me, I took him for his word. And I was waiting. Some police officer friends of mine, we were waiting for this guy. And sure enough, guess what he did? He came over to my house that night and tried to break in. And needless to say, that guy's no longer alive. But it was a very bad situation. And then I found out later what he was doing is he was collecting knives, and he had taken all the knives out of his mother's cabinets and had them stored under his mattress. And no one did anything, and no one said anything. If I didn't have police officer friends, I'd probably be dead right now. There's a lot of crazy people out there.
Yeah, more than we know. Yeah, more than we know. And what made me think about that, I put a sign up in the my gun room. Oh, it's on the door of the gun room, and it's a picture of my dog with a AR-15, and it says, "My dog's refusing to take his meds, and now he has a rifle." So I can identify that. And she's in here, and here's another thing too: get a dog.
Yes.
Because if they even try to get past me, there's about 100 pounds of teeth behind me that's trained, believe me, is trained to take them down.
Correct.
And you talk about protective. You even look at my wife twice, and if you put your hand out to shake her hand, the dog will eat you alive. Carl, right? So when the militia comes over to the house, and these are some tough men, right, and women, the first thing they ask is, "Where's that dog? Where's that dog at?" So, get a dog.
And that's true. They've studied and interviewed, different criminals, and they've said, no, if I know a house has a dog, I am less likely to break in because I don't need all the drama of a dog barking and trying to bite me.
You know what? I had a detective friend of mine. He's a detective for 35 years, and he was like a student of crime. So he always interviewed, in his interviews, he would ask the same questions to a variety of different types of criminals. And about burglaries, he said to me, the 2 things that will deter a burglar breaking into your house or a home invasion, the 2 things. What do you think those 2 things are?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say obviously a dog, and 2 would be signs, various signs outside that say you have like an alarm system or something. You think a light?
Dogs and lights.
Really?
Yep. The 2.
I'm kind of surprised by the lights.
Of all the professional burglars, home invaders, the 2 things that are deterrent the most are lights and dogs.
I knew the dogs. I would have never thought about the lights. I think I told you guys a story, a couple of years ago about somebody. I was out in a cabin. My family had a cabin out in Missouri and out in the middle of nowhere. But, it was just my mom and I there, and we had the lights on. The TV was on. She fell asleep with the lights and the TV on. and somebody, I still to this day have no idea who it was, tried to break in. And so I was kind of surprised about the lights because this person heard a TV, they would have seen the lights. And not only did they took the hinges off the front door and tried to get in, they took the frame off the door. They went around the back door and tried to, take all the bolts out of the door. And then finally they jumped up on the back porch, and that's when it kind of woke me up. And who they are, I'll never know. But
Yeah.
in that case, I mean, I guess it doesn't always work that way.
Well, that wasn't a random event. He shot you.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, that
No,
was a very
he knew who was in the house,
yeah.
what was in the house, and you had your son with you. Or just two women?
Just my mom and I. Yeah.
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 Well,
Well,
he knew
yeah.
that.
When the police came out, they told us, they said, the sheriff, he sat there with us while we packed our stuff. And he said, you need to pack now and you need to leave and you need to not come back. And he said, because whoever this is, they will be back. And, whoever this was very intent. And he said the reason why they removed the frame on the door is because they were fully intending to be able to come into the door, take us, or do what they were going to do, close the door back up to where it looked like nothing, like there was no breaking and entering. It was a really scary situation for us. We sold the cabin because to this day I have no idea who that person was. But that's just it. There's different kinds of criminals. Speaking about that, Colonel Adams, as you probably know, I wrote a crime blog, for quite some time. And one of the things that I noticed about a lot of these criminals, and particularly serial killers, or even just random people like this guy in Raleigh, North Carolina, that killed Zoe Welsh, is that if you leave a window or a door open, you are much more likely to become a victim. I can't tell you how many cases I wrote about where somebody had left a window cracked or a window open or a back door unlocked. And, criminals will come around. They'll check every single window and every single door to try to get into your home.
Well, another thing, American Burglary and Fire are good friends of mine, and they're the top security company in St. Louis, by far superior to everything. If you see an ADT sign, people don't know what they're doing.
My friend Amanda's parents own that company. Yes.
Okay, so they're top drawer. In fact, if there's surveillance cameras and recorders, I got backups to the backups to the backups.
Right.
So in every square inch of the killing zone around our house, which is a cleared property, just so they can't get unseen to the house.
And that's, Colonel Adams, that's what you have to do. If anybody came to my house right now, I have sensors in the driveway. Well, first of all, my entire property is fenced in with an iron fence. But let's say if you come in the driveway, there's different points where it's going to alarm me that you're here. I'm not going to tell everybody about everything else, but there are cameras at every corner. And you people have to start thinking about protecting themselves.
Well, I wouldn't answer the door without a gun. The problem is Deanna has a mental problem. She's a shopaholic. So we have a line of delivery trucks coming and going from this property all day and night, believe me. So there's constant traffic. But yeah, there's like in our driveway is 1/10 of a mile long before you even get to pavement, okay? And we're putting in a system to detect, of course, the vehicles before when they get in sight. But I really have never done that before because I got these teeth behind me that knows she'll be, and right now, if there was a truck coming down that road 1/10 of a mile away, she'll tell me. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. So get a dog.
Get a
dog.
You've got to protect yourself. Colonel Adams, we have some breaking news coming in. And I think things are about to go down in Venezuela. The Venezuelan interim government, who we knew wasn't going to work out from the beginning, they have now stated that anyone in the country of Venezuela who is celebrating the arrest of Maduro or who is seemingly supporting their freedom or the United States, they're going to be arrested. I mean, Donald Trump's not going to allow that to happen.
Oh boy.
So things are changing, escalating pretty quickly.
Well, I said there'll be skirmishes, okay?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. So also they're probably going to I hate this. They're probably going to disarm the people inside Caracas just for protection.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, those protesters who protest the whole invasion of Caracas, the problem is they all got guns.
Right.
And 2 and 2 makes 4. So, because I hate disarming anybody, but those people, let's put it this way: if you're protesting that and you're pro Maduro, disarm those people. Don't disarm everybody.
Right.
So
yeah, we'll see how all this plays out. But Delcy Rodriguez, of course, is the interim president, so I can only assume that she must be the person giving the order to police in Venezuela to arrest anybody out celebrating, of course, Maduro's capture and supporting the United States. So obviously, her in that position of interim president is not going to work out. And then Colonel Adams, I know you probably have to run, but
no,
did you?
I'm okay. I got to do a gun deal here at 11 o'clock, so I'm fine.
Oh, okay, good. Because I wanted to ask you about the situation with JD Vance. I'm sure you heard that there were shots fired into his Ohio house this morning. Now, he and his family were not there, thank God. The person has been arrested, and of course, a liberal white man. Surprise, surprise. So it's Secret Service, of course, whether or not JD Vance is there or not. Secret Service is going to be at his home. His home is going to be protected even when he's not there. So the story goes that Secret Service, they heard a loud noise, they said around midnight. And again, this is at Vice President JD Vance's home in Ohio. And they said a man had smashed the window with a hammer. Now, originally it was said shots were fired into his home. The new information states he actually was a hammer. He was trying to break in to vandalize the house. But, I've heard a lot of different reports. I'm not sure which is true. But they said he did vandalize a Secret Service vehicle. But, I'm kind of confused about it because some reports say that he fired shots into the home. And now we're hearing, and I know that there's something happened. I saw the broken glass in his windows. It didn't really look like a bullet to me. So maybe a hammer makes more sense, but he also vandalized the Secret Service police vehicle. These people are unhinged, completely unhinged.
How did he get close to the house? I mean, when I was in South Africa, I had to go over there and solve the carjacking problem and the kidnappings. And I said, well, it's simple. Well, okay, we brought you over. What? Don't let them get to the car. Stop them before they get there.
We've lost your video. We hear you.
Did you get close to the vice president's car at all?
Well, I've never seen JD Vance's home.
Yes,
I've not seen his home. I don't. Oh no, you're fine. We see and hear you now.
Yeah.
And it was just a temporary blip. I've not seen JD Vance's home. I don't know if it's fenced in, if it's surrounded. That was his home prior to becoming vice president. I'm going to guess if he's not away from the road and not fenced in, he's probably going to be moving. Because that's a really close call. Your home. You don't want someone coming to your home.
Well, I don't want to disclose anything, but they don't live there. They don't live. They're not living there.
Well, no, that's what they just said. He's not there.
Yeah.
But no, he wasn't home. He's not there. He obviously lives in Washington, D.C. But the Secret Service, is still at his home either way.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been going on. But yeah, he hasn't lived there since a week after he was vice president. No.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that, that's his private residence. Everybody has their own private residence. And of course, they get elected and they move to D.C. and that becomes their next residence. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a little bit more information on that. And then other than that, the only other thing I wanted to mention was that Donald Trump had stated that, a lot of people are calling him out for his health and seeing the bruising on his hands and so on, that he is taking aspirin as a blood thinner to thin out his blood, just to help his heart out a little bit with a little bit easier pumping. I'm not sure if you saw that on the news or not.
Yeah, me too. Who's not me? Carl too. Who doesn't at our age take an aspirin?
I hear people are making such a big deal out of it. Now I have atrial fibrillation, and so for the first year I had atrial fibrillation. I took an aspirin every day for literally an entire year till it started causing me some ulcers in my stomach, and then they switched into Coumadin, which is your typical blood thinner. And so I don't think it's really that unusual for Donald Trump at his age, to have a little bit of a rhythm issue. I think most people at his age do have rhythm issues.
Yeah, but there
not
they
a
go
big-
again. That's all that's the best they can do. It's the same people.
It is. The left is unhinged. They're going to do their best to impeach Donald Trump over the situation in Venezuela. They're going to fail miserably. But you know what concerns me more is the people who are violent, like this guy that came out, this young white guy. I don't know how old he is. He's pretty darn young, who came out to JD Vance's house and attacked it. We see people out on the streets who are just vile, just flat out vile. They hate us. They hate Donald Trump. They hate everything we do. I sent you, and I still don't know the significance of April 27th. I haven't figured that out. But there have been a lot of people who've been threatened that something's going to happen to them on April 27th. Nick Shirley being one of those. You know, somebody posted to one of his social media accounts that, hey, I'm going to kill you on April 27th. They're going to find your body in a ditch.
Is that
And
the day of reckoning? The
I
day of
know that's what I
reckoning?
keep hearing, this liberal day of reckoning, but I
Yeah.
can't find an original source for it. I can't find any information on it. And I'm kind of wondering if there's some secret plan out there and a couple people have slipped up and, you know, couldn't help themselves and made outward threats about that day. The only thing I could find on that day is the day that Mussolini went into hiding. You know, that was the 24-hour period before his death. I don't know.
How'd that work out for Mussolini?
Right.
No, I saw that, and I asked Dana to find out that date. What's nothing pops up.
I can't find anything on it. I've looked, but there's some significance to April 27th.
Where did you get that at? Where did you get that from?
Nick Shirley was talking about it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Better call Nick. I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Nick Shirley, he is the citizen journalist who exposed all the corruption that's taking place in Minnesota. And so he was threatened, and somebody came out and told him that on April 27th, they were going to murder him and they would find his body in a ditch. Other people have alluded to a civil war that begins on April 27th, or potentially just random attacks, you know, against, you know, prominent people. I don't know. I guess we're going to just have to keep looking and keep researching and see if more information is released.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't either.
Bring it. Bring it. Let's go. Bring it. Okay. Hey, I am going to run.
Yes.
The dog wants to go out, and she's the boss. And so thanks for having me today. I'll talk to you next Monday, if not before.
Yes.
And hey, Carl, thanks for chiming in. That's my friend. Oh, yeah. Carl, he's a trip. People who don't know about that, join our newsletter and just email at patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. Keep you up to date on what the Guard's doing. Like I say, right now we're concentrating on guerrilla warfare. Change the plans. So God bless this country, and God bless the best president ever, Donald J. Trump. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. So happy to have you. Thank you for sticking in there with us. That's Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. So happy to have had him join us today. Oops, sorry, took him out, brought him back in on accident. And patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. If you would like to reach out for that newsletter, I'm sure Colonel Joe Adams would be very happy to discuss it with you. And I wanted to kind of backtrack, Carl. The information that I have regarding Venezuela being the government ordering the police to arrest Venezuelans is just through some private people that I know. Sorry, I've been struggling with this chair. You can't probably see it, but there's a chair next to me and it's not where it's normally at. I think I've got it out of the way now. But yeah, so it's probably not on the news yet. If you haven't heard it on the news yet, you will sometime throughout the day. And that is definitely going to be some interesting information when we hear it. We'll see how Donald Trump responds. And so, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about. The only other thing I didn't cover, and I wish I would have thought about bringing this up before Colonel Joe Adams left us, was Mamdani. That's the other thing we missed during my week out. We have Mamdani, of course, sworn in New York City, one hand on the Quran. And I am already hearing about all the backlash. There are people just looking to leave New York City. They don't want to be there. They're realizing, hey, this guy wants us to pay wealthy people an exorbitant amount of tax. And in the meantime, he promised all this free stuff to the people. Then you hear what their public transit system, the tickets went up by $3. There's a lot of people who can't afford it as it is. Now, a $3, think about that. If you take public transit every day, your rates just went up by $3 a ticket. That's absolutely insane. People are not happy about anything that's going on there. And, he's already has talked about, it's kind of funny. He talked about those government ran grocery stores as part of his campaign. I really wasn't sure how easy it would be to pull that out. But you know what? He's doing it. He's doing it. They're in the works. They're going to have government ran grocery stores, which is, exactly what socialism is, of course. He's not hiding the fact that he's a socialist. And, he's already come out with a lot of anti-Semitic statements, something that he said he wouldn't do. It's definitely happening. They've already closed Times Square, for times of prayer. And people in New York City, man, if you're there, you better get out. Just leave. Just leave. Because we saw what happened with socialism on a larger scale in Venezuela. We're going to see it on a smaller scale in New York City. And, of course, New York, NYPD, they've been leaving in droves already. There were hundreds of resignations prior to Mamdani being sworn in. And, we all know under a socialist regime, police are not protected. And that's what we're going to see here. And let's see, Carl says, spoiler alert regarding Maduro. Think about one of DJT's original campaign promises. You're probably right, Carl. In fact, I know you're right. Kevin says he's declared war on landlords. He wants to take their properties and give it to his Muslim friends. Of course he does. Of course he does. And that's the first thing he's going to do is talk about rent subsidies. He doesn't want any of the landlords to up the rent. They've got to keep them the same. We know that's not really how the world works, and it's very expensive there either way. Pam, grocery stores won't last about a year, if even that long. What are we going to see next? We're going to see food lines, rations. Isn't that how this works? How does anyone think socialism is going to work in New York City? It is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I'm kind of surprised, but Governor Kathy Hochul, who I thought would stand up to Mamdani, she's just falling right in line with him. Just the other day, it was some type of Muslim holiday, and they turned all of the buildings green. They had all the green lights on. And I was kind of wondering what's going on because I was at a couple of different grocery stores and I kept seeing all these green cupcakes and green cookies and green cakes. And I'm like, what is this about? I'm like, it's not close enough to be St. Patrick's Day yet. So, what's all this green about? And then later that day, I read about New York City lighting up in green to support, of course, whatever, Muslim holiday it was. Man, things are going to be tough in New York City. And I have some friends who live there and I love New York City. I really do. I'm just one of those people. I just love New York City. I visited there a couple of years ago. A radio show had asked me to do, it was called The Answer. I was going to have a show right after Joe Piscopo, myself and a friend named Susan. And I went down there to meet with all of the radio executives, and they took us on a little cruise through the New York Harbor. It was a really nice experience. And I had the opportunity to meet up with a friend of mine who lives in New York City, and she and I walked all over the place. We were up till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, just walking the streets, and we felt perfectly safe. Everybody, of course, this was in Manhattan. Everybody was extremely friendly. We just had a really great time. Now, I didn't want to move there because I didn't want to have to go back and forth. Obviously, I own a business here in the St. Louis area, but I just have a real big fondness for New York. I always have. I've been there many times, as a child, teenager, and as an adult. And I hate to see this happen. I really do. And what do people think, from other nations? New York is everybody knows what the Big Apple is, right? People save their entire lives to be able to visit the United States. And the first place they go is New York, and then Hollywood, of course, after that. We all know what's happened to Hollywood. But either way, guys, I can tell already I'm going to start coughing, so I'm just going to cut it short now. That was really everything I want to talk about. The only thing I didn't mention is that we talked a little bit with Col Joe Adams about the refugee status and where we're going with deportations. Well, Kristi Noem has announced, I don't know if it was yesterday or early this morning, that we are now open to applications for refugees. So if you're in this country, if you're not in this country, and you want to officially apply to be a United States citizen and you feel that you meet the requirements of entering the United States as a refugee, the applications are now available online. That is something that has not been available for quite some time. So, You know what? We'll be back tomorrow. We'll have lots more to talk about. We'll touch base on some of these things that we're not so sure about today and see where things go tomorrow. There's going to be a lot that's going to take place today. There's going to be a lot going on in Venezuela, a lot in Iran. We're going to hear probably from Cuba, probably from Colombia, probably from Mexico. So we'll have a lot more to talk about tomorrow. And I will look forward to talking about those topics then. I hope you guys all have a really great day. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, lots to talk about tomorrow and every day this week. We'll be back with Colonel Joe Adams next Monday. If anything crazy comes up, we'll have him pop back in with us as well. But I do hope you guys have a good day, and I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I'm